Forced to marry a woman 30 years older? No one expected what happened next. The red dust of Mars swirled around the small ranch perched on the edge of the colony. Jace Corbin, barely 22, tightened his gloves as he checked the hover horses grazing in the neon-lit pens. The ranch had been in his family for generations, but the colony council had made it clear the land and the workers needed more than his youth and stubbornness. They needed guidance, and they had decided Maris Kane, the brilliant scientist, was the solution. Jace scowled as he heard the drone of council announcements echoing through his communicator. Effective immediately, Jace Corbin, you will marry Maris Kane to ensure the stability of your ranch and the surrounding settlements, the council's voice declared. The words felt like a hammer striking him. Maris Kane was 30 years older than him. She was respected and admired for her intelligence, but she had never been married, and certainly not to someone as young as him. He threw the communicator down, kicking at the dust. "This is insane," he muttered. "I'm not getting married to anyone right now, especially not her." Maris, meanwhile, was preparing her things in the main colony lab. Tall and elegant, with sharp eyes that seemed to calculate every detail in the room, she heard the same announcement. She sighed, adjusting the strap of her tool pack. She had spent years perfecting the terraforming equipment and the survival tech for the colonists. Marriage was never part of her plan, especially not with a boy barely old enough to shave. When she arrived at the ranch, the colonists whispered behind her back. Some thought she was too old. Others wondered how Jace could handle the sharp mind of someone so accomplished. But Maris walked with confidence. She had faced sandstorms that could crush a hover car, radiation bursts that could blind a colonist, and equipment failures that could end lives. This marriage, she reminded herself, was just another challenge. The first meeting was tense. Jace glared at her, arms crossed, while Maris studied the pens of glowing hover horses. "So, you're the one I'm supposed to marry," Jace said finally, his voice low. Maris didn't flinch. "Yes, and I'm here to make sure your ranch doesn't fail. We work together." "I don't need help. I know this land better than anyone." "Then you'll see," Maris replied calmly. "That knowledge comes in more than one form. Experience is valuable, yes, but planning, calculation, and tools can save more lives than instinct alone." The air between them crackled, not with anger, but with the unspoken challenge of two strong wills meeting. The first days were awkward. Jace was used to doing everything his way, relying on brute strength and instinct. Maris had a plan for everything, from water recycling to hover horse feeding schedules. Every morning she arrived with data pads full of notes, charts, and schematics. Jace would roll his eyes, mutter under his breath, and yet, slowly, he began to notice that her suggestions worked. Then came the solar storm. The colony had issued warnings, but Jace thought he could manage it. The hover horses were restless, the wind howling like metal scraping against stone. Maris insisted they evacuate the animals to the inner pens, where the magnetic shields could protect them. Jace grumbled, but followed her instructions. Together, they worked through the dust and wind, her calm voice guiding him while he pushed the horses into the pens. At one point, a young hover horse panicked, nearly throwing Jace into the swirling red sand. Maris grabbed his arm with a strength he hadn't expected. "Trust me," she said, and together they steadied the animal. For the first time, Jace felt a flicker of respect, and something else, a warmth he wasn't ready to name. By the time the storm passed, the ranch was intact, the hover horses unharmed. The colonists, watching from the safety of their domes, murmured among themselves, maybe the council was right. Maybe this strange forced union could work after all. Evening fell over the red canyons, turning the sky into a mix of neon pinks and deep oranges. Jace and Mary sat on the edge of the main pen, drinking nutrient packs and watching the horizon. Neither spoke at first, the silence filled only by the soft hum of the ranch systems. "You handled that storm well," Maris said finally. "Better than I expected," Jace shrugged. "Guess I'm learning, slowly." Maris smiled faintly. "Learning is the first step. Adapting is next. Maybe one day you'll teach me something too." Jace chuckled. The idea seemed impossible, yet not unpleasant. There was a spark there, a tiny flicker of something neither wanted to admit. The next day brought more challenges. A malfunction in the hydroponic system threatened the food supply for the hover horses. Jace was ready to tackle it with raw force, but Maris had a plan involving recalibrating the water flow using sensors she had installed weeks earlier. Reluctantly, Jace followed her instructions. When the system stabilized, he couldn't help but feel a surge of admiration. "Okay," he said, scratching his head. "Maybe you do know a thing or two." And you, Maris replied, might be learning to think beyond muscle and grit. Their days fell into a rhythm of cautious cooperation. The ranch demanded constant attention, and the unforgiving Martian environment gave no room for error. Slowly, their walls began to crumble. Jay started asking her opinion on small decisions, and Maris found herself laughing at his sarcastic jokes, his youthful energy a contrast to her meticulous planning. But the colonists' whispers never stopped. "That boy doesn't stand a chance," some said. "She'll outsmart him in everything," others added. Jace tried not to care, though the comments stung more than he wanted to admit. Maris ignored the gossip entirely, focused on the ranch and its systems. Yet she noticed the way Jace's posture stiffened when the whispers reached his ears. One night a new threat appeared, a rogue dust skimmer moving unnaturally fast across the outskirts of the ranch. Jace spotted it first, instinctively reaching for his plasma lasso. Maris joined him, checking her handheld scanner. "It's automated," she said. "Someone is testing the ranch defenses." Without hesitation, Jace and Maris moved together, coordinating the horses and shields. Jace's strength and agility combined with Maris's precise calculations, and they managed to redirect the rogue skimmer away from the pens. The threat passed, but the event left both of them silently acknowledging the value of the other. By the end of the week, the forced marriage had not changed, but the tension had. There was a growing respect, an understanding that survival in the harsh Martian outback required both their talents. Age, they realized, was just a number. Skill, courage, and trust mattered more. As the twin moons rose over the red horizon, Jace looked at Maris and admitted softly, almost to himself, "Maybe this won't be so bad after all." Maris raised an eyebrow, a small smile tugging at her lips. "We'll see," she said. But inside, she felt the same strange pull, the sense that this union, forced as it was, might become something neither of them expected. And so, the ranch settled into a new normal, a young cowboy learning the value of planning, and an older scientist discovering the warmth of partnership. Outside, the winds of Mars whispered through the canyons, carrying with them the promise of storms, challenges, and unexpected bonds. The colony had forced them together, but as the days passed, it became clear the real adventure was only beginning. The morning after the storm, the Martian landscape looked both beautiful and dangerous. Red dust covered the canyon walls, and the faint glow of neon lights from the colony shimmered through the haze. Jace Corbin woke early, rubbing his eyes. He could hear Maris Kane already moving in the main barn, her footsteps careful but determined as she inspected the hover horses. "Morning, Maris," he called, trying to sound casual, though he felt awkward. "Morning, Jace," she replied without turning, her voice calm as always. "We need to check the hydro mining systems before the sun reaches its peak. The storm may have caused minor damage." Jace sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. He hated the way she always had a plan.
He preferred action over strategy.
"Fine," he muttered. "But I'm taking the hoverbike today. It's faster." Maris paused and looked at him, raising an eyebrow. "Fast isn't always better. You'll need the sensors to avoid dust vortices." "Don't worry about me," he said, though the truth was he did worry a little. Not about himself, but about the way she always knew what he might miss. By mid-morning, the two were riding through the canyon lands on the hoverbikes, Jace clinging to the handlebars with both excitement and irritation, Maris scanning the terrain with her handheld device. Dust swirled around them in thick clouds, and the narrow canyons made their journey treacherous. Suddenly, the scanner beeped loudly. "Look out!" Maris shouted. "Dust vortex 30 meters ahead." Jace slammed the brakes, skidding sideways as the wind howled and the hoverbike trembled. He barely managed to stay upright. Maris landed her bike safely nearby, her expression calm but focused. "You need to trust the sensors," she said quietly. "Your instincts are good, but the environment here is unpredictable." He swallowed his pride and nodded. All right. I'll try it your way." As they continued, Jace began to notice how skilled Maris was with the bikes. She navigated the sharp turns with precision, never panicking. For the first time, he realized that her age didn't matter. Her experience and intellect were assets he could actually depend on. Their mission took them to the hydro mining facility at the edge of the canyon. The storm had knocked loose several panels in the system, and a minor leak threatened to flood the area. Jace immediately wanted to grab his plasma wrench and fix it by force, but Mary stopped him. "Step back," she said, holding up her tablet. "We need to reroute the energy flow first. If we don't, the system will overload and create an explosion." Jace's jaw tightened. "An explosion?" "Yes," she replied, tapping on the screen, "and you'll thank me later if you follow instructions." He scowled, but he did as she said. Step by step, he followed her directions, and slowly, the facility stabilized. Water flow returned to normal, and the panels were secured. Jace couldn't hide the admiration in his eyes. You were right, he admitted, wiping sweat from his brow. Maybe I should listen to you more. Maris allowed herself a small smile. And maybe I should learn to trust your instincts when there's no time to think. By afternoon, the air settled and the dust cleared. They rode back to the ranch slowly, sharing quiet conversation. Jace was surprised at how easy it was to talk to Maris when the machines weren't demanding their attention. He found himself laughing at her dry humor, while she seemed genuinely amused by his impulsive ideas. Back at the ranch, a new challenge awaited them. A group of rogue space bandits had been spotted near the colony, scouting for easy targets. They were fast, equipped with stolen hovercraft and energy disruptors. Jace immediately reached for his plasma lasso, ready to defend the ranch, but Maris stopped him. "Not yet," she said, analyzing the data on her tablet. "We need a plan." "If we act without strategy, we'll lose more than the livestock." Jace gritted his teeth. "My strategy is simple. Hit them hard and fast." Maris shook her head. "Simple doesn't work with advanced tech. Trust me, I'll guide you." Reluctantly, Jace followed her instructions. Maris directed him to place energy decoys around the ranch perimeter while she recalibrated the shields. When the bandits arrived, expecting an easy raid, they were met with unexpected defenses. Energy nets triggered, magnetic fields scrambled their sensors, and the hover horses stampeded in controlled panic, confusing the intruders further. Jace worked alongside her, following her lead, and he was surprised by how smoothly they coordinated. Each action he took complemented hers perfectly. For the first time, he saw her not just as the older, experienced scientist, but as a partner he could rely on, even respect. The bandits fled, frustrated and outmatched, leaving the ranch safe. Jace exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. "Okay," he said, a grin spreading across his face. "Maybe you're not so bad after all." Maris allowed herself a genuine smile. "And maybe you're learning faster than I thought." That evening, as the red Martian sun dipped behind the canyon walls, Jace and Maris sat outside the main barn, the hover horses grazing peacefully. The winds had calmed, and for the first time in days, the ranch felt safe. "You know," Jace began, hesitating, "I didn't think I'd like working with you. But today, you saved the ranch. And maybe me too." Maris looked at him, her eyes soft but thoughtful. "And you saved the system from failure. We both contributed. That's how partnerships work." Jace chuckled. "Partnership, huh? Sounds strange, but good." For the first time, they shared a moment of silence, not filled with tension or instructions, but mutual respect. The forced marriage that had started with reluctance was slowly becoming something neither had expected, a genuine connection based on trust, courage, and shared experience. The next day they began repairing the damage from the storm, working side by side. Jace learned to anticipate her calculations, and Maris began to trust his instincts in moments of sudden danger. They discovered an alien plant near the hydromining facility capable of purifying water faster than the colony systems allowed. Jace was fascinated, not just by the plant, but by the way Maris explained its properties so clearly. "You've got a gift," he said quietly. "Not just for science, but for teaching, too." Maris smiled faintly. "And you have a gift for courage. Even when you're reckless, you inspire those around you to act." By the end of the week, the colony began noticing the change. The young cowboy and the older scientist, once seen as an odd, forced pairing, were now a team. Colonists whispered less about the age difference and more about their skills, their bravery, and the way they worked together. One night, as they checked the pens of the hover horses, Jace asked, almost casually, "Do you think we could actually make this work? Not just the ranch, I mean, us?" Maris paused, considering him. "I don't know about us yet, but I do know this. If we continue to trust each other, respect each other's skills, and face challenges together, anything is possible." Jace nodded, the tension easing from his shoulders. He realized that age, gossip, and expectations didn't matter. What mattered was survival, trust, and the bond they were slowly building. A bond forged in storms, danger, and shared victories. As the twin moons of Mars rose over the horizon, casting silver light over the red canyons, Jace and Maris worked together late into the night. Their conversation drifted from technical plans to personal stories. Jace learned about Maris's past missions on other colonies, her struggles, and her victories. Maris discovered the determination, humor, and heart of the young cowboy she had been forced to marry. And though neither admitted it yet, a small spark had begun. A spark of trust, respect, and something deeper, something unexpected, something that could change both of their lives forever. The Martian winds whispered promises of more storms, more challenges, and more adventures ahead. But for now, in the quiet of the canyon, Jace and Maris found a rare peace. They were learning to trust, not just in the land, not just in the machines, but in each other. The unlikely partnership was beginning to grow into something remarkable, and no one on Mars, not the colonists, not the council, and certainly not Jace himself, expected what would come next. The Martian morning was calm, but the calm always felt fragile. Jace Corbin adjusted his gloves and checked the hover horses, the red dust still clinging to their coats from the last storm. Maris Kane stood nearby, her tablet in hand, scanning the data from the ranch's energy shields. The quiet between them was no longer tense. It was comfortable, a sign of the trust that had grown between them. "Shall we check the hydromining systems again?" Maris asked without looking up from her tablet. Jace nodded. "Yeah, I want to make sure the bandits don't try anything tonight, and I'm starting to actually like your system." Maris raised an eyebrow. "You said that yesterday, too. I'll take it as progress." Together they rode toward the facility. The canyon winds whispered against their hoverbikes, carrying the faint scent of ozone and the lingering dust from the storm. Jace noticed how steady Maris was, her movements precise and confident. He had ridden with her many times now, but every time he watched her work, he found something new to admire. When they reached the facility, Jace noticed something unusual. "Maris, look at this," he said, pointing to strange tracks in the Martian dust. Hovercraft tracks, but not the kind they had seen before. The grooves were shallow and scattered, like the vehicle had moved quickly, almost like it was scouting. Maris crouched, scanning the tracks with a portable sensor. "It's a new type of bandit craft," she said, "faster than anything we've encountered. They might be testing our defenses." Jace felt a surge of determination. "Then we'll show them they picked the wrong ranch." Maris shook her head, but there was a small smile on her face. "Patience, Jace. Let's plan first. Reaction without strategy will only get us hurt." Together, they devised a plan. Jace would position the hover horses and energy nets, while Maris recalibrated the magnetic shields and set up decoy signals to mislead the bandits. It was a delicate balance between brute strength and calculated precision. By nightfall, the bandits arrived. Their new hovercraft glowed faintly under the twin moons of Mars, moving like shadows across the canyon floor. Jace and Maris worked seamlessly, giving orders and coordinating actions without needing words. Energy nets rose, magnetic shields activated, and the hover horses stampeded, strategically confusing the intruders. Jace felt a thrill he hadn't expected. Fighting alongside Maris, seeing her calm in the chaos, he realized that their connection was more than just survival. It was respect, partnership, and, he admitted to himself, a growing admiration that went beyond simple trust. After the bandits retreated, exhausted and frustrated, Jace and Maris surveyed the aftermath. The ranch was safe, and the hover horses grazed peacefully under the Martian sky. Jace looked at Maris and said quietly, "You're amazing at this. I didn't think I'd say it, but I'm glad you're here." Maris met his gaze, and for a moment the air between them felt charged. "And I'm glad you trusted me," she replied softly. The next days were filled with repair work and discovery. While examining a damaged section of the hydromining system, Jace noticed something strange embedded in the rock face. An alien artifact, partially covered in dust and rust from centuries of neglect. Maris examined it with her sensors, her eyes lighting up. This is ancient," she whispered. "The readings are off the charts. It's some kind of alien technology, maybe predating even the earliest Martian settlements." Jace felt a thrill of excitement mixed with caution. "We have to be careful. Who knows what it can do?" Maris nodded. But there was a spark in her eyes that Jace had never seen before. "Exactly. But if we study it carefully, it could help the colony more than anything else we've encountered." The discovery created a new bond between them. Late nights were spent in the lab, analyzing the artifact, debating theories, and testing small, safe experiments. Jace brought his hands-on experience, and Maris added her scientific expertise. Together, they uncovered the alien tech's potential. Energy generation, water purification, and even soil enhancement, all far beyond current human capabilities. During one late-night session, Jace noticed Maris rubbing her eyes, tired but focused. "You should rest," he said, concerned. "I can't stop now," she replied, smiling faintly. "We're on the verge of something important." Jace hesitated, then reached out and placed a hand on hers. You don't have to do this alone. We can do it together. Maris looked at him, surprised, and then nodded. Together, she agreed. That word, simple as it was, cemented their bond. It was no longer just about trust or survival. It was about partnership in the truest sense. They relied on each other, respected each other, and slowly a quiet affection grew, unspoken but undeniable. One afternoon, while testing the alien device in the canyon, Jace slipped on the rocky ground. Maris grabbed him just in time, steadying him with a strength that surprised him. Careful, she said, her voice gentle. You're reckless sometimes. He laughed, brushing himself off. And you're always calm. Guess that's why we work so well together. The days passed in a rhythm of exploration and work. They discovered that the alien technology could amplify the ranch's energy shields, making them nearly impenetrable. They learned to adapt the hydro-mining systems to use the new energy source, improving water flow and crop growth. Their partnership did not go unnoticed. Colonists began to respect them not just for their abilities, but for the way they complemented each other. Whispers about the age difference faded, replaced by admiration for their skills and bravery. Jace and Maris, once an unlikely pair, were becoming a symbol of strength and intelligence combined. Evenings were spent around the hoverhorse pens, sharing stories. Jace learned about Maris's past missions to other colonies, her challenges, and her victories. Maris learned about Jace's childhood on the ranch, his stubbornness, and his dreams for the future. Through these conversations, their bond deepened. They laughed together, argued occasionally, and learned to trust each other completely. One night, under the glow of the twin moons, Jace spoke quietly. Maris, do you ever think about what life could be like? Together, Maris paused, considering him. I do, she admitted softly. And I think we can make it work, but only if we continue to trust each other and face every challenge side by side, Jace smiled. Then side by side it is. They didn't kiss, and they didn't declare love, but the connection was undeniable. The trust, respect, and admiration had evolved into something deeper, something neither had expected when the Council had forced their union. A week later, the alien artifact revealed another secret. It emitted a faint signal, pulsing in rhythm with the colony's energy systems. Maris studied the patterns. It's not just technology, she said. It's a message. Someone, or something, is watching us. Jace frowned. Watching us? Yes, Maris replied. And I think it wants us to understand it. Carefully. Slowly. If we succeed, the colony could benefit in ways we've never imagined. The revelation didn't frighten them. It excited them. Together, they planned their approach, combining Jace's courage and Maris's intellect. The alien technology was no longer just a discovery. It was a mission. As they prepared for the first safe interaction with the artifact, they exchanged a look. No words were needed. They trusted each other completely, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. And so, the young cowboy and the brilliant scientist, forced into marriage but now united by choice, stood side by side in the Martian canyon, ready for the challenges ahead. Their bond, forged through storms, danger, and discovery, had deepened into a connection that neither age nor expectation could break. The Martian winds whispered through the canyon, carrying promises of danger, adventure, and the unknown. But Jace and Maris were ready. Together they could face anything. Bandits, alien tech, or the mysteries of Mars itself. And for the first time they both realized that the forced marriage that had begun as a punishment might turn into the most extraordinary partnership either had ever imagined. The red sun had barely risen over the Martian canyon when Jace Corbin and Maris Kane stepped carefully toward the alien artifact. It sat half buried in the dust, pulsing faintly with an eerie blue light. Over the past weeks they had grown confident in their ability to interpret its signals, but today was different. The artifact's frequency had increased, a steady rhythm that seemed to beckon them closer. Jace tightened his gloves and glanced at Maris. You ready for this? He asked, though he already knew the answer.
Maris nodded, her sharp eyes focused and determined.
We have to be. We've learned enough to make the first connection safely. Together. Side by side they approached. Jace held a stabilizing beam over the artifact while Maris adjusted her portable analyzer. The device hummed, responding to her commands. Suddenly, the artifact projected a holographic map of the colony and surrounding canyons, highlighting areas that could benefit from energy amplification. Jace whistled softly. It's showing us improvements. We could double the hydromining output, stabilize water supply, and protect the hover horses better than ever. Yes, and this technology could help every settlement on Mars. We just need to understand the protocols. As they worked, Jace noticed something else, how much he had come to rely on Maris. Her knowledge, her calm, her brilliance, it complemented his courage and hands-on skill. He realized that the bond they had built over storms, bandits, and long nights of repair was more than trust. It was connection, something neither of them could have predicted when the council forced their union. "Maris," he said quietly, "I never thought I'd be standing here with you figuring this out. But I'm glad I am." Maris looked at him, a soft smile forming. "Neither did I, Jace, but here we are." The artifact pulsed again, brighter this time. Maris's analyzer picked up a complex energy pattern. "It's asking for cooperation," she said. "It wants us to synchronize our actions to unlock the full potential." Jace nodded. "Then we do it together." Carefully, they followed the artifact's instructions. Mary's input precise commands while Jace adjusted the energy channels with strength and precision. The artifact responded instantly, stabilizing the ranch's energy network and amplifying the shields around the hydro mining systems. The effect was immediate. Water flows stabilized, crops began showing signs of growth, and the hover horses' pens glowed faintly with protective energy. For the first time, Jace and Maris allowed themselves a moment to breathe. The ranch was safer, stronger, and more prosperous than ever. The alien artifact had given them the tools to ensure survival and progress for the entire colony. "Jace," Maris said softly, "we've done it. Together, we've made something incredible happen." He looked at her, a warmth spreading through his chest. "Yeah." That evening, as the twin moons of Mars rose, they sat outside the barn watching the red landscape bathed in silver light. For weeks, they had been partners in survival and discovery. Now, for the first time, they could simply be two people sharing a quiet moment. "You know," Jace began, hesitating, "I never thought I'd like you like this. Not at first. But now, I can't imagine doing any of this without you." Maris turned to him, her eyes soft. "Jace, I feel the same. You've been brave, stubborn, and loyal. I've learned to trust you completely. More than anyone." For a moment, they simply looked at each other. The age difference, the gossip, the forced marriage, they all faded away. What mattered was the bond they had built, stronger than any obstacle Mars could throw at them. Slowly, Jace reached for her hand. Maris didn't pull away. Instead, she laced her fingers with his. The gesture was simple, but it spoke volumes. It said trust, respect, admiration, and something deeper, an affection that had grown naturally through shared challenges. The following days were filled with celebration and work. The colonists began noticing the changes at the ranch. Crops flourished, water supplies improved, and the hover horses thrived under the strengthened energy shields. Jace and Maris were no longer seen as an odd couple, but as a legendary team whose combined skills had transformed the colony. One afternoon, while exploring the canyon with the artifact still pulsing softly, Jace and Maris encountered another signal. This time, an alien map pointing toward a hidden Martian cave system. Maris's eyes widened. This could be a source of even more energy. It could stabilize the entire colony for decades. Jace grinned. "Then let's check it out. Together, of course." Inside the cave, they discovered crystalline structures emitting a faint glow. The alien energy resonated with the artifact, amplifying its effects. Jace marveled at the sight, realizing that their combined efforts had unlocked something far greater than they had imagined. Maris carefully analyzed the patterns, her mind working in tandem with his observations. This is beyond anything we've seen," she said, her voice filled with awe. "And it's all accessible because we worked together. Our skills complemented each other perfectly." Jace nodded, feeling proud not just of the discovery, but of the partnership they had forged. He had learned to value intellect alongside instinct, strategy alongside courage. Maris had learned to trust his hands-on experience and bold decision-making. Together, they had unlocked a future that neither could have achieved alone. Back at the ranch, the colonists celebrated. Jace and Mary's were no longer just a young cowboy and an older scientist. They were leaders, heroes, and a symbol of unity and possibility. People marveled at the alien technology, but more than that, they admired the bond between the two who had unlocked its secrets. One evening, under the glowing twin moons, Jace turned to Maris. "You know, we've done more than just save the ranch. We've changed the future for everyone here." Maris nodded, squeezing his hand. "And we did it together. That's what matters." The wind whispered through the canyon, carrying promises of new discoveries and adventures yet to come. Jace and Maris knew that challenges would continue, but they also knew that together they could face anything. Their forced marriage had begun as a council decision, but it had evolved into a partnership of trust, courage, and unexpected love. As the weeks passed, Their relationship continued to grow. They trained the colonists in using the new technology, shared stories of their adventures, and laughed together during rare quiet moments. The age difference, once a source of gossip, was now irrelevant. What mattered was their shared experience, respect, and the bond they had built through adversity. One quiet night, Jace and Maris sat on the cliff overlooking the canyon, the alien artifact glowing softly at their feet. "I never imagined this," Jace said quietly. A forced marriage turning into... Maris smiled, her eyes reflecting the twin moons. Life has a way of surprising us, and sometimes the challenges we resist the most lead to the greatest rewards. Jace took her hand in both of his, feeling the steady warmth. I guess no one expected what would happen next, and honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. Maris leaned slightly toward him. Neither would I. The Martian night was calm but full of possibilities. Jace and Maris, once forced together by circumstance, had become partners, equals, and friends. Their trust had deepened, their bond had strengthened, and their unexpected affection had grown into something neither had anticipated, but both cherished. Together they had unlocked alien technology, secured the colony's future, and discovered the true power of partnership. And as they gazed at the glowing horizon, one thing was certain. Whatever challenges came next, they would face them side by side, stronger together than they ever could have been alone. The red winds of Mars carried whispers of new adventures, but for now, Jace and Maris allowed themselves to rest, content in the knowledge that their unlikely union had become something extraordinary. No one had expected it, not the council, not the colonists, and certainly not themselves, but in the end it didn't matter. They had exceeded all expectations, together.